Hello and welcome to Empowered Learning. This video will go over how to use your TI-83 or 84 calculator to be able to compute the standard deviation as well as the mean of a particular data set. We will also go through how to actually do this particular calculation quickly in StatCrunch as well. And then finally, we'll use those tools to be able to calculate the coefficient of variation in the example that we have by using both the TI-83 or 84 calculator as well as StatCrunch. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we want to do here is figure out, since we know that the coefficient of variation is basically the standard deviation of a data set divided by the mean times 100. We want to be able to figure out how to do this in our TI-83 or 84 calculator. So I have my emulator here, and the first thing that we want to do is we want to enter in our data values. To get our data values, we're going to click here, and so we see that they're loaded there. So we're going to take these data values and then put them into our TI calculator. Alright, so the first thing that we want to do is actually get these data values into our calculator. So we're going to go over here and click on Stat, and then after that we'll click on 1 to edit, and we see that we have column L1 and column L2. We're going to list the heights in column L1 and the weights in column L2 for this particular example. So for us to enter those in, all we just need to do is just type the numbers and hit enter. So for the first column, we'll have 65, enter, 70, enter, and we'll just keep on going until we're done. So I'll go ahead and enter those in, and we'll go work on the second column next. So we've entered in all of the heights. So now to go over to the next column, we just click our right arrow here, and then we start to enter in those next set of numbers there. So 177, enter, 219, enter, and we'll just keep on going until we finish that. All right, so we have all those values entered in. We should have 12 in each column. So next we'll just go to second quit, get back to our main screen here. And so then after that, the next thing that we want to do is figure out how do we calculate our standard deviation and our mean really fast without having to go through a bunch of extra functions or whatnot. So the quick way to do it is if we go to list, that's right here above stat. So we'll hit the yellow button, then list, and go to math. You'll see here that we have these functions, and you'll see that option number 3 is the mean, and option number 7 is the standard deviation. So if I wanted to calculate the standard deviation for our heights, that would be column L1. So all I have to do is hit 7 and then refer to column L1. And so that would be yellow and then the number 1 here, because you'll see L1 above it. Close parenthesis, hit enter. And so that is what our standard deviation would be for the heights for this example. If we want to do the same thing with the mean, then we would do second, list again, go to math, and then after that select 3, and then second, number 1 for column L1, close parenthesis, hit enter there. And so now you see that we have both of those, and now if we just take those numbers and divide them by each other, then we'll get the result. Now the good thing about this is that we can actually do this all in one line in our calculator here. So if we go to second, list, math, and then let's hit standard deviation, second, 1 again, then that will take care of the standard deviation for the heights. And then we just say divide, do second, list again, go to maths, and then select 3, second again, 1, close. And now you see that we have our standard deviation divided by our mean for our data set. And of course, all we have to do now is just multiply that by 100. So we'll take that, multiply it by 100, and yes, we see that we get 5.98, blah, 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 okay? And so with that, our question asks us to round to the nearest tenth. So if we round 5.98, blah, 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 to the nearest tenth, that will be 6.0, okay? And so we'll go ahead and enter that in. And since we've already entered this in, we won't really need that anymore for right now. So I'll go ahead and reduce that. We'll have 6.0, and we're good. And so now we'll do the same thing with the weights. And so for here, instead of doing column L1, we'll just do column L2. So go ahead and calculate this again. So we'll go to clear first. All right, so now let's go ahead and do the same thing for the weights. So we'll go here to second. I don't know why it keeps on doing that. Let's go to second, list, math, and then we will select 7 again, yellow 2, and then divide by second, list, go to math again, and then we will go to 3 now for the mean, and 2, and then hit enter. And then of course we just multiply that by 100, and we get 8.23 blah 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 blah. And so rounding that to the nearest tenth, that should be 8.2. So we check our answer and everything's good. And so now we conclude here, since the coefficient of variation is higher for the weights than it is for the heights, then we're going to conclude here that the weight varies more so than the height. Okay? Check that, and everything's good. All right, so now what we're going to do is, now that we've seen how to do this with the TI-83 or 84 calculator, we're going to do the same thing doing StatCrunch. And so to do StatCrunch, come here, and instead of going to our calculator, we'll click on this icon here to invoke StatCrunch. And so we see that we have all of our values here. So I'll make this a little smaller so that we can see everything. And so now in StatCrunch, what we want to do is to tell StatCrunch to compute our coefficient of variation by actually entering it in. And so we're going to enter it in as a function. So I'm going to go to data here, and then we're going to say compute. And then what we're going to do is say compute multiple expressions. And so if you notice here, we are allowed to name what we want to enter in, as well as type in what our function is going to be. So for the first one, I'm going to do CV for coefficient of variation, heights. And when I come here, I'm going to build the function. And so what I want to do is a lot like what I did in the calculator. I want to find a standard deviation function and use the column for heights to do that, and then divide that by the mean and use the column for heights again. So if we scroll down, we'll see that there's our mean function, and we're going to pick that up later. But we're going to scroll down until we see the standard deviation one, which is STD right here. So we'll have that. We add the function, and then we go over here to the column. Since we want to do the heights first, we do that, add column. And then we move our cursor over, click, and then from there we'll just divide, and then scroll back up to the mean, add function, And then after that, we will click on heights again, add column. And so note, if you just wanted to do the standard deviation by itself, you could just do the standard deviation, click the column that you have, and then basically hit OK, and it'll calculate all that for you. Okay. All right, so we have that one, and so now we'll do the same thing, CV weights. Can't spell. And then we'll do the same thing. So we'll build, and we'll come down here for standard deviation. And this time we'll do weights. Oops, sorry. So standard deviation, add function, and then weights, add column. And then after that, divide, and then we'll do the mean. I think I skipped it here. Yep. So mean, add function, weights, add column, and then OK. And so now all we have to do is compute, and we see that we get those values there. Okay. Now, of course, we could tell all this to multiply by 100 as well. So I'll go back and do that. So let's go back to options. Let's edit. And so what we'll do is put some parentheses around here, and we'll just say, oops, didn't mean to do that. So let me go ahead and build that again. Do the heights here. And let's see, let's do the height right there. Yeah. So the way you set it up, it may be in a different column and whatnot. Let's go to build right here. And so let's add our parenthesis. See if I can fit it in there. And then just multiply times 100. And we'll say OK there. And we'll do the same thing here. Add parenthesis there. Add parenthesis there. And then multiply times 100. Do OK there. And then we will compute. You see that we get our values there. And of course, we saw that in our last example here for the heights, we got 6.0, which is this number here rounded to the nearest tenth, and we have 8.2% for the coefficient of variation for the weights, which is this number here rounded to the nearest tenth. So you see how we can take a data set or several data sets and calculate the standard deviation, the mean, as well as the coefficient of variation for those particular data sets. And so this concludes the video on how to calculate standard deviation, calculate the mean, as well as using that information to be able to calculate the coefficient of variation with both your TI-83, 84 calculator and StatCrunch. Hope this helps. Take care.